What's up, everybody? Welcome to another Aefoundry video. This is a heated battle between two mobile digital sculpting apps and options for you on iPad and Android. In the world of 3D, digital sculpting has become a staple of organic and character modeling. In that area, ZBrush has been king and the granddaddy of all sculpting applications. Outside of that, there has been more applications or software that have added sculpting capabilities into them, but ZBrush has always been top dog. Now, with technology getting smaller and more powerful with the smaller size, especially in things like the iPad Pro or the Samsung tablets, we have programs that are now able to do professional quality work on a mobile option like an iPad or Android tablet. And that being said, for me, my opinion is I prefer this workflow, especially as I start to be a little bit more nomadic with the way that I like to work, either if I go to a coffee shop or hang out with a friend or anything like that. I mean, I know right now we're not going anywhere, but hey, if I want to sculpt on my couch or sculpt in bed or sculpt on, our breakfast nook or whatever, I don't have to be tied down to my desktop anymore. And that's what I love about these apps, is that it's allowing you the freedom and the lightweight workstation that you can have with something cheaper like an iPad or a Samsung tablet, or an Android tablet, I should say. Because most of those desktops that you would need to run a lot of these softwares like ZBrush or Blender or any other software that allows you to sculpt well, you need to spend anywhere upwards from $1,000+ to get a somewhat stable, if decent machine to a powerhouse machine that you can just do anything with. And that being said, not everybody has that extra $1,000, especially right now. So if you have an Android tablet or one of the other iPads that has support for the Apple Pencil, then these apps might be right up your alley and might be what you need to get into digital sculpting or even making character art or 3D printing if you want to make your own collectibles or figures or miniatures or anything like that. These are both valid options to get started. Like I said, if you already have the tablets with you, these apps run really smooth even on lower end iPads, and I believe some Android tablets, but don't quote me on that one. So to get to the point of the video, we have two apps that we're looking at. We're looking at the Forger app, which is a video I've already done, or an application I've already done on my channel, which I'm going to link up here on the cards in the corner. And then the new app that just came out, I believe it was last week, is Nomad Sculpt. So these two are both digital sculpting mobile apps that you can use on your iPad. Well, at least with Forger, that's only on the iPad. With Nomad Sculpt, it's on the iPad and on Android. And with the refresher of the iPad this year, or at least the iPad Pro, the cheaper options have more RAM. It's 6 GB of RAM across the board, and I think that opens up a lot of the whole my talk about being affordable and accessible. If you don't already have an iPad Pro, all the iPad Pros going from the cheapest to the top of the line iPad all have 6 GB of RAM, and that's going to be an important point later as I'm discussing about the Forger app. Other than that, guys, can hit the like button, and if you want to see any more of the content in this video or any other content like tutorials or art related topics, please hit the subscribe button, and I would love to hear a comment from you guys on other videos you want to see me do. So let's get to it. I hope you guys enjoy. So for my short answer, which one would I choose? Honestly, I would choose both. And if you want to know more and you want to know why, please watch the rest of the video. But if you just want to know the answer, I'd pick both. If you are on the iPad. If you're on the Android, sorry, but Nomad's your only option, then go with Nomad. It's a buy. Both of these apps are a buy for sure with the capabilities that they have. Now, disclaimer before I start anything else on this video, I want to let you know I am not sponsored by either developer of these apps. I'm doing this because I have a passion for digital sculpting, and now with the iPad Pro having these apps, I can digitally sculpt for 3D print, or even starting the workflow for a character model for games or animation on the go, on my couch, in a coffee shop, wherever. So that's why I have a huge passion for getting this type of content out to you guys. So as far as price goes, like I said, Forger app is only on the Apple store. So that one, you're going to pay $9.99 USD for the application. There is an added add-on content, but I'll touch base on that shortly. And for Nomad Sculpt on the Apple Store, as far as I saw today, it is $20.99. And then on the Google Play Store, it is $14.99. So Android guys, you guys have a better deal, but still $20.99 for this app on the iPad store isn't bad. I mean, you look at stuff like ZBrush, where you're paying $40 a month or $900 for one-time fee, or other applications. I mean, the only one that I could think that would be a solid bet is Blender because it's free. So $20.99 is not a bad deal at all. So that's pricing. I mean, they're pretty cheap, and again, for the capabilities that they have in each one of them, for $31 if you're on an iPad to get both of them, that is not bad at all. And it's a one-time fee. You're not paying a subscription, you're not paying anything else. It's just one time, and you get a lot for that money. So as far as documentation goes, Forger has pretty solid documentation. There's videos that a few other guys have done, and I'll link their channels in the bottom. One of them is his name is Southern GFX. He does a lot of good content on there, and the Forger developer himself has put up a documentation user manual. There's a forum that he's set up, and there's a few quick YouTube videos that he's had. If you want to go find all that information to check out Forger and see how easy it is to use through the documentation, check out learn.forger.app, and that should give you 3 links to go to the forums, the user manual, and his YouTube channel. So those are those links for that documentation. Unfortunately, with Nomad Sculpt, there isn't really any documentation at the moment. The developer, he's slowly releasing little social media bits on how to do certain features and functions, but you know, I've talked to him, I've messaged him real quick, and he does realize that documentation does need to be made, and I think he's going to be working on that. So hopefully soon there'll be some good documentation for Nomad Sculpt. I know I'm going to do a few tutorials on it, and I know, like I said, Southern GFX, he's going to be doing it. But there's a lot of the community's picking this app up quickly, so if the developer doesn't do it, there's going to be plenty of tutorials out there coming out soon for myself or many others. So to cover up some of the startup, when you start up in Forger, the first thing you're going to see is a file grid of either old save projects and a few base meshes that the developer has already put in the software. So you get a starting point from either a plane, a cube, an orb, or a sphere, I should say, a head, or a male figure. But for myself, like you should see on the screen, I have a few older files. And with saving older files, I think the best thing you can do with this is start building up your own base mesh library. So things like female sculpts or head sculpts or things that you want to use later on, make separate files to just keep them as kind of like base mesh starters inside Forger app. And I think that's really awesome that the startup is set up that way for the Forger, and allows you to choose what you're going to go into and how you're going to use it. As far as Nomad Sculpt goes, it literally just sends you in and starts you up with a sphere, and you have everything you need in the UI. So, which that leads me to the UI. The UIs in both of these are pretty good. I would say Forger is a little bit confusing or not as user-friendly. There's a lot of separate tabs that you have to go into. There's a side menu that pops out. What I love about Nomad Sculpt is everything is literally a click away and can be accessible with using one hand. So if you're just somebody that likes to hold your tablet and just use your Apple Pencil or your S Pen if you're on the Android, and you just want everything to click with one hand and function that way, Nomad Sculpt is going to be for you. The Forger app, unfortunately, has a lot of functions that you need both hands to do, or you can do them within the menu. So it kind of, you either have the slow option or you have the faster option, but you still are limited to having to use both hands, and you can't really lock everything all at once. I wish there was a lock mechanism or a click mechanism. Maybe the developers worked on that, I don't know, but that would help out a lot. I really think as far as UI setup goes, Nomad has Forger beat as far as the accessibility of where everything's at. But again, Forger isn't a slouch. There's a lot in there, and the basic UI is actually really user-friendly in there. So next up is performance. Now, the Forger app is great. It performs well. It does pretty good on most files that I've worked on. I like to get high density files. I like to push these softwares to their limits to see how far and how much geometry I can get in there. As far as I'm aware of, the Forger is limited by the RAM. It bogs down pretty quickly as you are getting higher dense meshes. And what I notice, or at least I feel like the battery does drain a little bit quicker on the iPad Pro using Forger. As far as Nomad Sculpt goes, it's like black magic. I don't know how the heck the developer did this, but it runs buttery smooth even at higher geometry counts. One of the files I'm working on right now has over 20 subtools in it, and most of them are over 1 million as far as the geometry count goes. I still haven't run into any slowdown as I'm sculpting, and again, from what I can tell, it seems like the battery life on the iPad Pro lasts longer while I'm using Nomad compared to when I'm using Forger. And if I go back to the whole Forger, it does seem like that gets a little bit warmer as I'm working. The iPad does heat up just a tiny bit, or at least that's what it feels like to me. So as far as features go, both apps are pretty robust. Like I said, these apps are pretty much on par with some of their professional counterparts. Yes, they don't have simulations or they don't have certain key features, but at least the core functionality to do proper sculpting, they both have. So let's go over a few things that they both have in common. We're looking at anything from matte caps to PBR lighting, multi-res sculpting. You got layer system, vertex painting, customizing brushes, multiple file exports. Like if you wanted to export an OBJ and say render whatever you sculpted in Maya or Blender, then you can export OBJs out of both of these softwares and then send it to whatever software you want to after that. And then the last thing is they both can import custom alphas, which I think is awesome for skin details and things like that. So they both can do it. Now, the differences are, this is where you start to notice the features are a little bit more important when it comes down to what you need and how you maybe sculpt or function. And this is why I say I think both of these apps are better in tandem together. The Forger app, you can export OBJs, STLs, and USD file formats. USD file formats, as far as I know, they're mostly used for animation. I've never touched them before, but I know it's a thing in animation studios. STL format, that's for 3D printing. That's the most common 3D printing file format. And then you have OBJs, which is pretty versatile. It could be swapping between different applications, or you could even do, some 3D printers even allow you to import that file type and then allow you to slice and cut and everything. So, but for 3D printing, just stick with the STL, and the Forger has that in there. So you can directly sculpt, remesh and solidify your mesh for 3D printing, and then export directly from Forger to your slicing software, as I should say. Forger does also have an optional texturing add-on, which right now it's not accessible because the developers are reworking it. So when that becomes available, I'm definitely going to download it. I know people who have older versions of Forger already have access to it, but currently when I bought Forger, it wasn't able to be purchased. So I'm going to wait and see. I sent a message to the developer today to see if it's coming anytime soon, because I would like to be able to texture paint in Forger and export those out, because there is an exporting option for you to export your textures either in PNG or TIFF. So that's pretty awesome, again, on a mobile tablet application. A few other things Forger has that Nomad doesn't have would have to be the importing of reference images into your background or into your application. Personally, I don't like doing that because I feel like it's still a little clunky. There's some people that prefer it. I use VizRef Pro as a secondary application that I split my iPad screen to have my reference up, and so that I'm just used to that workflow. I don't really use the background image import export or the resource thing where I import images in. But I know there is some who ask for it, and I know there are some people that do sculpt that way, so it's good to be able to have both of those options. You have adjusting your masking or rotation point with masking for posing. As far as I'm aware, Nomad does not have that yet to adjust your rotation point on the mesh itself. So this is great for posing if you're like I said, making a sculpture, a miniature, anything like that, or wanting to bring a little bit more life into your just art piece. Posing does a lot, and Forger has a very robust system with masking and rotation and changing your pivot points and everything like that. So that's a big plus, especially for you professionals out there that maybe are coming from ZBrush or anything like that need that functionality in your sculpting application. On top of that, it also allows you to do a lot of other features like I call them polygroups because that's where I learned in ZBrush. So similar to polygroups, I think it's called face groups in Forger app. And then you can also hide part of your object with like a lasso tool or a box shape, just like in ZBrush, so that you can just focus on a certain section of your model. And last but not least, you have the mesh extraction option. So that is awesome because then you can start blocking out clothing directly off of your mesh, which that's been my workflow in ZBrush for the longest time, for the past few years. That's where Forger really makes a difference from Nomad Sculpt, as far as it might have weaknesses when it comes to performance. But as far as features, Forger is a lot more robust in the sculpting section. Nomad Sculpt, you have a few key things that could sway you a little bit more, and I'm finding them it's kind of swaying me because, like I said, I'm going to be using these apps in tandem, but for those who are trying to choose between the other, these are the differences. In Nomad Sculpt, you have the awesome trim brush, which allows you to do custom shapes and cuts into your model. This is great for organically doing hard surface objects on the quickly. You do have a triplanar object, which is kind of like the shadow box in ZBrush if you've ever seen it. This allows you to bring in a small little triplanar setup, and depending how you mask all three sides will give you a custom shape out of there. So that was pretty neat. I probably won't really use it because I never really used shadow box in ZBrush, but I know there are some people that do, and it was a nice functionality in ZBrush, and I mean, it's still in there, and I know there's plenty of people that still use it. So anybody who likes that, that's in Nomad Sculpt. You have GLTF exporting, and this allows you to pull out the color from the vertex painting when you're exporting it to other applications that might be able to import GLTF, which is kind of cool. I've never used the file format again, but I'm going to be familiarizing myself with it because I am going to be using Godot for a side project, and I know that's the exporter of choice in Godot, the Godot engine. Another thing is matcap importer. Now, Forger, there is PBR lighting and PBR rendering, but I feel like Nomad Sculpt allows you to customize it or change it in a way that you like it. So there's matcap importing. There's multiple HDRI maps that are already in there for you to use as a base to light your characters, but you can also import your own HDR maps as well. So those are the differences between the apps. If you have any other questions, please leave them in the comments below. If I missed something, let me know, and I'd love to hear from you guys on that. So which one do I think is better? Like I said in the beginning of the video, I personally like both of them, and I think both of them are a buy if you are on an iPad. Right now, where they stand, I think they need to work in tandem. Now, Nomad has better performance on the iPad from what I can tell, so I think I would personally be starting out in Nomad a majority of my sculpts because it just runs smoother, it feels nicer, and the UI allows me to sculpt with one hand. I don't always want to be using two hands, especially, I have daughters and maybe they need me to grab something, or they want to sit with me and I need to hold one of them while I'm doing my sculpts. I can sculpt with one hand, and that's a big sell for me. So that's where I'll be starting my sculpt. As far as finishing them, posing them, things like that, that's when I'll export it and import it into Forger and finish off any posing or getting ready for 3D print in that application. So that's why I think for anybody with an iPad or iPad Pro, both of them are just a great purchase, and it really allows you to do professional work on the go. As for Android users or hobbyists, well, Nomad's your only option for Android users, but that's not a bad thing. As for hobbyists and amateurs, I would recommend Nomad Sculpt because the user interface is a lot more user friendly and everything is right there for you. And you have the ability to customize pretty much the UI the way you want, be it colors, how things function, how things work. You can move around what your favorite brushes are. There's a lot of customization in that, and so I think for new people coming into digital sculpting, Nomad Sculpt is probably the app for you. But again, that's my opinion. Like I said, if you have an iPad, buy both of them. If you're just on Android, you have Nomad. So again, what do you guys think? Have you guys tried any of these apps? If you did, which one? Did you buy both of them? Did you buy one of them? What was your decision when it came down to picking one or both? All right, guys, that's pretty much it for me today. Thank you again for all the support, and thank you guys again for all the love on the Forger app review. I was really surprised about that. Again, I've been away doing work, doing client work, and trying to get that out of the way so that I can just focus on YouTube. And it seems like the more and more things are going, I'm probably, hopefully, fingers crossed, going to be able to put out more content on YouTube for you guys. But there's a lot of stuff in the works, so I'll have some news soon for you guys, and yeah, I'll talk to you guys later. Peace.